This is Del K. Brereton, and this is The Real Spiel. Shiloh Institute, stand up. The discussion I would like to have today is to break down the current regimes of puppet governments that we are now looking at and dealing with in the world. I also would like to say that I have been getting some fantastic instruction from a brother that I think many of you who are in the struggle need to have as a mentor. And his name is Dr. David Israel. He's teaching me Hebrew, spoken, written, even biblical Hebrew and modern Hebrew, as they would call it, from an Afro-Semitic perspective. But he's giving me more. What he's doing as he's teaching me Hebrew is he's showing my little brain how to look at the Western construct that we have been given and to flip it on its head and turn it upside down. He is doing it directly and indirectly, because as we analyze the world through the lens of the Hebrew mind and the Hebrew perspective, under the stress of knowing the Afro-Hebrew truth, and this is no disrespect to anyone else, but when I say the Afro-Hebrew truth, it means that we are seeing the world for what it is, not for what we have been told that it is. We are effectively dismantling the puppet governments that currently exist right now. I hate to keep going back and giving everyone a history lesson in order to give us what I'm talking about today. But it would need to happen. The history must happen. We are not ignorant to the fact that the original people, the indigenous people of the land of Israel, were Afro-Shemitic people. We are not ignorant to the fact that God has used that land for the upturning of empires from Israel all the way to the Turks. We know that the Romans were there. We know that the Greeks were there. We know that the Persians were there. We know that the Arabs were there. We understand the nature of the region. We understand the intermingling of governments, of power, regimes, and of people. And if we understand that this area of historical antiquity has been the hotbed of the pursuit of power, then we can honestly accept and understand the things that I'm going to speak about today. Netanyahu's war, can I call it that today? Netanyahu's war is not simply a war for, in his mind, for the liberation of the Israeli from his enemies that surround him. Netanyahu's war is also a bold statement, rewriting a false history, forevermore cementing the Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jew, the European Jew, as the face of historical Judaism. Indirectly, the hatred of the European Jew also cements a false history into the minds of the world, forever causing their faces, their pigmentation, and their story to be what is Jewish, what is Hebrew. It causes you now to take a different look at the historical texts and to think of the historical persons and to say that these people who we've read about, these people who they call on, the Abrahams, the Isaacs, the Jacobs, the Jesuses, the King Davids, the Solomons, that all these people must have looked like a European Jew. And so these puppet governments, they don't simply look for the power of the area. They look also to change the historical narrative that this generation believes. It is not just the puppeteering of government, it is the puppeteering of hegemony. It is the puppeteering of history. It is the grand larceny of truth that is taking place also. The Palestinian is suffering from not simply the dropping of bombs and the inability to receive resources, the lack of care that the world has to save a people who are clearly being overwhelmed. The Palestinian is suffering from being written out of history, of being told that you are not a people. What is the face of the Palestinian? Many of you find it difficult to imagine that face. What does a Palestinian look like? Is he a Muslim? Is he a Christian? Is he a Jew? Is he black? Does he look Arab? Does he have green eyes? Does she have blonde hair? What is a Palestinian? And as this war continues, the historical erasing what these people are, who these people are, where they came from, why they are there, continues over and over and over and over again. Well, let me answer the question. That area is an Afro-Semitic area. And what does that mean? That means that all things Shemitic, all those Shemitic, are in the area. The Arabic, the Semitic language, in the area. Christianity. That's right, Palestinians are also Christians. I was taught myself in person by a Palestinian Christian while I was in Israel. They're Christians. They're Muslims. They're Jewish too. The Palestinian is not a religion. It is a people. It is a people. And it's not a people of even one monolithic type. The Palestinian is the indigenous individual of the land, of the region. And they have their own history too. They have their own history too. One of the very interesting things about when you take a look at the biblical narrative and acquainting Jesus to the history of the region, he decides that he has to go to Samaria. And the story goes out that he goes and he meets a woman at the well. This woman represents more than you think. In the conversations with her, he says, "Woman, you've had 5 husbands, and the man with you right now is not your husband." In a very tertiary surface glance at that, you think he's talking about the woman's personal romantic life, which he is, but there's more to it. She also represents the region. She represents Israel, the northern kingdom, the entire region. And her 5 husbands are representative of individuals who have taken hold of the region. Assyria is who took Israel away, northern kingdom. Babylon came for the southern kingdom. Persia came to rescue Israel, or the southern kingdom after 70 years. Greece came to overcome Persia. And number 5 was Rome. which was the government at the time that Jesus was talking to this woman. He's talking to the region. He is saying that you have been overwhelmed by 5 kingdoms. You have bowed down. You have caused these nations, their gods, their culture to become your husband. And you don't even have a husband. In fact, the man you're talking to is your true husband. Speaking of Christ and speaking of the God of Israel, who he is supposed to represent. God bless you, Yvonne. So when we deal with Netanyahu's war, Netanyahu is just not committing a genocide on the people of Palestine. He is killing history. He is rewriting history. Moving over. He's just one puppet. The next puppets are in Iran. Iran puppeteering Hezbollah and Hamas. Oh boy. It is interesting when you have a bully who, when he gets slapped in the face, declares that he will retaliate. But because he realizes that he is not a true bully, that he's only the bully of a certain portion of the playground, that he cannot go too far. He can't go too far. We all know, those who have serious critical thinking understand and know that Iran is by now a nuclear nation. Which is why the world gets so excited when Iran makes threats. But Iran can only make threats as loud as the other puppets, Russia and China, allow them to talk. This is why Iran has to say, we will retaliate, but we will tell you when we're retaliating. We will tell you exactly how we will retaliate, and we will retaliate in a way that you can stop our retaliation. They're not saying that part, but they effectively are. They retaliate, they demonstrate how they're going to retaliate. America now is still alerted to the fact that they say they're going to retaliate, but America doesn't go too far because Iran knows that America will have to do something if they decide to use larger levels of arms against Israel. The puppets, all the puppets functioning, doing their thing, all the puppeteers functioning, doing their thing. Now America making their decision. Who is going to be the new face and new puppeteer of this American military regime? Ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake that your new currency is military might. I'll say it again, your new currency is military might. You are not operating on a currency backed by gold. Your currency, your fiat currency, this paper that designates whether or not you have the capacity to earn, it is not backed even by the robustness of the economies of scale of the countries that you live in. They are backed by the power and might of the military of those countries. Period. Absolutely, period. The insurance bond, which is what that is. Every time you receive something in your hand that's called money, it is an insurance bond. It is a bond that you will have the capacity to utilize this at a later date at similar value, and therefore allowing you to feel secure. Therefore, it is insurance. It is an insurance bond for the future livelihood. This is why many of you do not have Indian rupees in your bank account. This is why you want American currency in your bank account. And some of you who do not believe in the longevity of America, you're saying, I would trade in that bond for gold because gold is also an insurance bond. It's all money is, whether it's fiat currency, whether it's hard currency like gold and silver, it is an insurance bond for your livelihood. But ladies and gentlemen, let's be real. There's really only a couple of things that the world really functions with. And I think I got this from Baby Boy, but guns and butter. But I won't call it butter, but guns, bread, and water. Guns, bread, and water. Who controls the guns? Who controls the water? Who controls the bread? Controls the world. And if you can feed your nation, if you can arm your nation, if you can make sure your nation has fresh drinking water, you are the most powerful nation in the world. That's really all you need. Bread, guns, and water. China's issues, China has a very hard time feeding itself. Russia's kind of in the same boat because a lot of their country, you cannot farm there. But America, from north to south, has the capacity to feed itself. They don't need to trade with any other nation for food. They can arm themselves, and they have enough natural water resources in order to be able to, of course, furnish their nation with water. We know that this concept of oil is an old, it's an old pillar of wealth. The world doesn't require it anymore. The world just needs to keep everything on an oil standard in order to keep the wealthy wealthy. But truly, it's not necessary anymore. Mr. Elon Musk has demonstrated to us that there really is no cause to have any form of combustible engine anymore. And so the puppets keep puppeteering, if I may. Praise the Lord. I can't read everything because I'm in the rain, but I will read it before I turn off, my brother. So now, this is the next phase of whether or not, as I spoke of, the Americans, who is going to be the chief puppeteer? Will you have Kamala? Or will you have Trump? I know who I would prefer to have, for the world's sake. Not as a Canadian, not as an American rather, because I'm not in America. But for the world's sake, I know who I would like to have. I would like to have a more docile, less intrusive president sitting in the White House, somebody who has the capacity to pull a trigger, but doesn't have an itchy trigger finger. I don't want an individual who is standing on ego, an old man in an old guard who remembers a time where America was stronger, more equipped than the world. Those times have passed. Those times are gone. Similar to that American Olympic team that struggled to beat Serbia, struggled tremendously, mightily. The Titans, that they call themselves, the Avengers, struggled to beat little Serbia. That's what the world is right now. America the Great. Has she fallen? No. But everyone has risen up and grown muscles and teeth and fangs. And everybody's dangerous. And so you cannot have an old man who is looking back at times where he is living in the Rocky movie of his own imagination. That doesn't exist anymore. In the real world, a 5'7" Sylvester Stallone would be slapped by a strong Swedish woman and be knocked to the doggone ground. Well, we need a man to knock out Sylvester Stallone. You can get a strong woman from Africa and knock him out. America is not who they used to be. And they need to understand that. Russia is not who they used to be. There would be a time where little Ukraine could never stand against Russia for this long. And why is it? Why are these nations finding it so hard to be the people who they used to be? To be the powerhouses who they used to be? Because the population has changed. The Russian bear is not raising bears in Russia. You're raising little Russian kids who don't want to fight. They don't want to be in wars. Zelensky had to shut the border. 6.5 million, listen to me, Ukrainian refugees who are fighting age are all over the world right now. 6.5 million Ukrainian men said, hasta la vista, baby. I'm not fighting anybody. 6.5 million Ukrainian refugees in the last 2 years. 2 years, they're all over the place right now. They're out of Dodge. 500,000 Israelis since October 7th have said, see you later, Benjamin. I'm not fighting in your war. They're out of Dodge. 500,000 got out of there right away because we're not building soldiers anymore. No, we're not doing that. The world isn't building soldiers. We're building despots because you're keeping 85-year-old men in positions of power. You're building despotic individuals who have a mindset of holding on. The old guard is still alive. That's the problem. But you're not building soldiers. Little Russian boys are listening to Kanye West. little Russian girls, they want to date Chris Brown. You're not building a nation that is looking around at its own population and desiring them. Little Irish girls want to date Nigerians. Go to Ireland. See if those little Irish girls want to date Irish boys. They want to date Nigerian guys. They're cooler. They can dance. They got braids in their hair. We're not building the nations that were here in the 1950s. Little white kids are going to Drake concerts. You heard what I said. They're going to Drake concerts. They're not standing up and declaring white power. There's only a fringe amount of individuals who think like that. And then a couple of coons who are on that wagon. Candace Owens. The continuation of the puppeteers, if I may. The next set of puppeteers are in the media. The Fox News, and even Fox News. The Fox News of Trump's first era is not the Fox News of today. They, crazy enough, have become more bipartisan since that time because people have come aware. There are reasonable white people in America who realize a second term of Trump is a disastrous thing for their nation. We are not building the types of minds that are able to stand up and go fight against their fellow man across seas. That's why we have drones. Drone warfare is the new warfare. How did they kill those two young men, those two leaders from Hamas? They sent a drone attack. The drone attack sent a little bomb, not even a strong bomb, enough to blow up their one little room. Didn't blow up the building, it just blew up their one little room. We need to be paying very close attention to what the Bible is showing us in respect to the last days. I know some of you guys went right off because how are you using politics in the Bible? Oh, my friend, I wish you would know. I wish you understood. I wish you understood how the Bible is mapping out some of these things that you are seeing right now. The Bible speaks of drones. It speaks of these. I'll show you one of these days. It speaks of these creatures that look like locusts, but they don't eat grain. They come for men, and they only come for men who don't have the seal of God in their forehead. They come for all of those who've taken the mark of the beast. They basically have the capacity to kill you based on zoning into the chip that you have in your hand or your head. Same thing, similar to drones. Once they have facial recognition and they know where you are, zoom, they can send something to kill you right where you live. These things are operating right now because we don't have the capacity. People don't have the real true endurance to stand up and to crush the heads of babies and to cut out the stomachs of pregnant women. The only people that still have the stomach to do that is Netanyahu's army. The only people who still have the stomach for genocide, right, are Netanyahu's army. Yeah. And actually, I do have to say, probably the individuals who are still fighting in Congo too, because that is the greatest genocide that is taking place right now. But Netanyahu's army has no issue killing children. No issue. Say, what about Hamas? What about Hamas? What about them? Let me tell you something. Once you militarize religion, yeah, you can create some crazy people, but you can't create a whole lot of them. Not a whole lot, not anymore, right? There was a time when ISIS was really the word on everybody's head, and they were radicalizing people on behest of Islam. But who was being radicalized? You think it was the indigenous guys who were actually being raised Muslim? No, you were radicalizing little white kids from the West, little white kids from Britain, bringing them over as mercenaries to fight on the behest of some of these small terrorist regimes. You're paying professional soldiers who were white to come and fight for you. Yes, you were. That's exactly what was happening. And they were saying that these were radicalized individuals. No, these are guys being paid $100,000, $200,000, $1 million to come over and to fight. Poor white kids who all they knew is war, all they knew is guns. They were paying these little guys to come over there and to fight. And they're fighting for anybody, they're killing anybody because you taught them how to kill. But those days are gone. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Those days are over. Those days are gone. It's too hard for them. Imagine myself, right? They say, Brereton, you've got police experience, weapon experience. We need you to come over to Lebanon and to spend a few months training us in open hand combat, and we'll pay you $500,000 for the month that you came there. Okay, how the heck am I getting there and getting back and not getting my passport stamped? How am I getting by the biometrics? It's very difficult now. Once you go over there and you get paid to be a little terrorist tutor, you're flagged, baby. You're flagged. Where are you hiding that money? Now you've got to set up an offshore account. You're flagged. It's too difficult to do it now. That's all my point. It's too difficult to do it now. Right? And so once you are in a position now where you now start seeing the world properly, you start seeing that, listen, these regimes are all coming to a close. And this is how they're coming to a close. Because people are getting lazier and lazier and lazier and lazier, and they want somebody to think for them. Anybody who has a teenager knows what I'm saying. Anybody who has a teenager living in their house, especially a teenage boy living in their house, they're lazier and lazier and lazier. Okay, forget about teenage boy. Now you have 30-year-old boys living in your house. Some of the girls get up and do their thing, but still, most of you have 30-year-old people living in your house. They're 30 plus, and they're still living in your house, right? Because this generation has pampered their children so much, they have no self-actualization. They can't get out there and do anything. They can't. Our generation, they wanted to kick us out when we're 18. We didn't do that to our children. We said, oh no, we can't do that to you. You've got to stay home. We got to keep you here. No, you don't have to do your laundry. No, you don't have to do anything. Oh baby, I'll still give you money. We've sent them to work, but they're still home. And so we have a generation of individuals who are not self-actualized, and so they're lazier and lazier and lazier and lazier. They've been groomed to be employees. They're not being groomed to be leaders, right? And they want someone to think for them. Here it comes. This is it. Sounds like I was all over the place, but here it is. Now, when you have a world consciousness that essentially wants to give power to one grandiose organization, government, or person, so they don't have to think. You have the makings of a culture that will gradually, eventually accept an antichrist government. You will accept the beast of Revelations to run everything. Now, compartmentalize this mentality of which, please, you run it, you take care of it. The same concept that Pharaoh had with Joseph. If you know the story, Pharaoh had a dream. Joseph told him, listen, for 7 years, it's going to be great. It's going to be prosperous, but for 7 years, you're going to have a famine. For the first 7 years, you got to keep the food. You got to store up the food because you're going to starve in the next 7 years. And you need to find a very smart man to administratively run this for you. Pharaoh said, you do it. Let's do it. And we still have that mentality coming right now. And they are going to give their power to the beast. They're going to give their power to the false prophet, because what's going to happen is government and religion are going to be mixed together. The false prophet will say, worship him. He is not simply just a man. He is an icon. He is a god. He is not simply just a man. Let me show you that he has more mystical powers than he does have governmental prudence. And you are now going to have a group of individuals, a nation of nations, who say, let him run it. Let him do it. He's good at it. And you have the formation of what will come to be the beast government. And one thing I was going to say, compartmentalized with actual world crises. If you read the book of Revelations properly, starting with Revelation chapter 7, you will see that what the book is telling you about is there's going to be a crisis of food, a crisis of water, because of the falling of comets. I know it sounds like something you've seen on television, you've seen many movies about it, but that's effectively what Revelations is saying. These stars, these comets, are going to fall in water, they're going to fall on land, they're going to create dust that blocks out the sun, they're going to create conversations about shortages of water supply, shortages of fishery supply, and the shortages of food, the shortages of water, the shortages of sunlight, which creates an energy crisis, are going to be something that has to be managed by a very smart group of people, or one very smart man. And this, read it for yourself. This is why I'm saying that when you live a life where you do not utilize the Bible to show you the futuristic concerns, you are living a life, you are driving through life without a roadmap, without a GPS. And some of you are comfortable doing that, and that's okay. Be comfortable, because ignorance is definitely bliss. But when others of us are armed with that type of information, we can look and see how dangerous a Donald Trump is. We can look and see how dangerous a Netanyahu is. These despotic men are dangerous. And we can also see how dangerous apathy, the lazy mentality of let somebody else make that decision is. We can see how tragic it is to have a population of people who are God-centered, who do not wish to participate in their municipal, state, or federal elections. People who are not policy-minded. People who are not making sure that they have representatives that represent their worldview sitting in positions of power. People who are not arming their children with political mindsets and rhetorics in case those young people find their place sitting in the seats of power. And those who are not reading those biblical stories to your young people, so they're growing up with the wisdom of what our forefathers have already conquered and gone through. When you are not doing all that, what you are saying is that I will be a puppet of the puppeteer, and I will allow them to manage me. I realize when I look into my own life that there's a reason that I have been built as an anarchist. That's right. I don't like people telling me what to do, what to think, how to believe. I don't like it. I'm happy that I have had the blessing of being raised in lands where I have my rights to do as I want have not been infringed upon, to the point where we absolutely have too much rights here. If you really look at it properly, we have the right to be wrong here. But the puppets and the puppeteers are being groomed in a perfect symbiotic state in this particular age. And you've got to be someone who stands up and shouts them down. The Olympics is the perfect distraction for what is taking place at this time. Imagine we dare have an Olympic Games when what is taking place in Gaza is taking place. Imagine the audacity of us having Olympic Games when what is taking place in Congo. Imagine that we have the capacity. Imagine that the house is burning down in one of your children's rooms. It's on fire. And you take all the kids and move into the living room and throw a birthday party while the house is on fire in one of the children's rooms. And you invite people to the home and they come and they ignore the room that is on fire. And let me add something to it. There's people in the room. There's people in the room choking, coughing, screaming for help. But you're having a birthday party in the living room. That's what the Olympics is to me. How dare the world just declare recess, let's all go out to play. You run, you jump, you dance, you throw, mock. Let's throw an opening ceremony and mock God in our cultural expression. Let's put a bunch of transgender LGBTQ individuals and mock God himself, and let's open up this wonderful ceremony while a portion of the house is burning down. Puppets. And sit there and watch that and clap and cheer and watch the buffoonery that is taking place. This is another thing. And I'm as blackety black as it comes. But to me, and I'm just going to talk about two individuals, and no disrespect to them as people, but what they represent. The buffoonery that I am seeing with Noah Lyles and Sha'Carri Richardson's her name. The buffoonery. The capacity to be a fool. The jumping around, the ridiculous hairstyles. It's ridiculous. A grown man running around with bobbles in his hair, like a little goofy little girl. The ridiculous colors and nails and accentuating aspects of you are there to be a sportsman, right? I don't believe in nationalism. I don't believe in the representing of my country. America felt the fact that they're running with this flag attached to them is ridiculous. Why would I run and compete for my slave master? Why would I do that? Why would I cry for the singing of the Star Strangled Banner? Why would I do that? But assuming that your athleticism still allows you to go and to make a living as an athlete, why wouldn't you do it with dignity? My question is, who does Noah Lyles represent? Who does Sha'Carri Richardson represent? Do you want your little boys to grow up to be Noah Lyles? To be goofballs running around? In 19 seconds, he was jumping around, and 19 seconds later, you had to carry him off in a wheelchair because he came third. Poor baby. Poor little fella. You came third. Oh, now you have you got COVID. Oh, poor little thing. 18 seconds later, after jumping around doing somersaults, Now you got to be carried off you got to be carried off in a wheelchair, fella. And Shikari, like, I know you went to university. You can't try to speak with some articulation of dignity. I'm sorry. I look at these kind of things and I'm like, who's raising you? I saw the documentary on Netflix about who's raising you to be like this? And to me, as a black person, they don't represent me. I do not want to be associated with being looked at like that. You're a puppet. You're a distraction for the world. I don't like it. I saw Gabby Thompson too. Thomas, I think her name is. Harvard grad. That's wonderful. Smart girl. Went out there, won the 200 because Sharika Jackson, of course, had to pull out of the race. But I saw Gabby Thompson too, and she was dating Chad. Isn't that fantastic? Love who you want to love. But I find it incredibly interesting that this Harvard graduate, scholar, neuroscientist, this wonderful, beautiful black woman, she's dating Chad. Isn't it interesting? Your Harvard graduate black woman is dating Chad. But Shikari in the hood with her green hair, her different colored wigs, and her ridiculous nails is talking hood talk. I don't know, man. And then Noah Lyles he's got baubles in his hair. I was so glad when that African boy beat him in the 200. I was so happy. Tobago, and I'm watching it on YouTube. I watch it after the fact. I don't care because I'm not giving them any live coverage. When I saw the dignity of Tobago, beat him in the 200, walked off like a gentleman, I said, aha, Botswana. An African legend right there. There's something to be said. Why is it that this generation, you be mad at me if you want to. It's my channel, I'll say what the heck I want. Why are these young people being raised properly? Are these parents so caught up with all of the millions of dollars they're making in endorsements, acting like fools in the midst of all this crisis? All he has to say is world champion, the NBA's world champion. I don't know. I digress. The puppets are in the government. The puppets are in the media. The puppets are also our icons. And last but not least is the puppets are also your spiritual leaders. Puppeteers, rather. Puppeteers are also your spiritual leaders. And I'll say it very clearly. Regardless of what religion you decide to adhere yourself to at this time, I believe my religion is the truth. But regardless of what you think is the truth for your religious expression, your responsibility is to be a leader of people. Your responsibility is to be a leader of people. And to me, what is taking place in many of these religious forums, and let me talk about my own so that I do not sound condescending towards anyone else's. Christianity, especially in the so-called black church, the Pentecostal holiness circles, we have so much spirit, but we have so little instruction to cause our congregations to go out there and to become members of the community that make change and cause real power to exist in the hands of people that think like us. And to me, that is a disaster. So even if you have a good pastor, a good bishop, who's a good man, and these days, a good woman, because they're making bishops women are being bishops now. Don't agree, but women are being bishops now. But you have a good so-called spiritual leader who is moral, who is loving, who is a mother or father to you, and if they are not building the next politicians, the next school trustees, the next city councilors, the next leaders, if they are not fostering a congregation of people to think with that level of progressiveness, they are puppeteers, keeping you stupid, keeping you docile, and keeping you useless. They are building sheep who will be the food of the wolves that the world is building. Because in closing, Satan doesn't build sheep. He builds roaring lions. That's right. And most of you are gazelles. You will run from an issue. You will run from a point of view. You will run from an opinion like a gazelle. What do you think of what's taking place? I don't get into politics. I don't discuss that. Well, what do you think of what's happening now with TDJ? Oh, we don't talk about that at the dinner table. We don't. Religion and politics, we don't bring those things up in this house. Gazelles. You are running away. But don't worry. That discussion that you're not having at the dinner table with your children, with your circle, with your network of influence, somebody else will have it. Somebody else will have it. That's right. And they will recruit them to their team. And so when you have that next wonderful dinner, you're sitting down with people in your own community, in your own circle, who have all different mindsets, all different ideas, all different points of view. So you're not really a community. You're not. You're a bunch of people living separate communities in your own ideological minds. You're not building a true nation. You're not building a true kingdom. In closing, Abraham told his servant, I want you to go find a wife for my daughter, for my son, rather. I want you to go find a wife for my son, Isaac. Told his servant, don't get him from here. Don't get him from this group of people. Go back to my kinfolk and go find him a daughter from there. But don't bring my son back there. Bring the woman to him. This is what he was saying. I do not want my son to marry someone who is still operating in this carnal world. I want him to get somebody who is wholesome. But I do not want my son to go backward and not to be in the position of the progressiveness of what God has put us in. Bring her here. Don't let him get caught up with what the world's doing, and don't let him get sucked back into what they're not doing. Bring her here and build a family from here. That's what I'm closing with you with. You need to have a mindset where you are building here. You are getting involved intimately in business relationships, in communal relationships with individuals who are building here, who are progressive for what we need to be doing here. And while you're doing it, understand that this tongue that you are speaking is not your tongue. As much as you are building and speaking in this Germanic language given to us by a colonizer, we must learn a different one too. And this is why Dr. David Israel, I'm going to post his stuff. This man's academic school, his institution that is in Israel, is Afro-Semitic man, wise man. I want us to support him. I want us today, I want you to sign up with him. Today, I want you to send him money. Today, I want you to register and be part of that institute. Today, I'm going to post it. Link me. Dell, tell me, how do I become part of Dr. Israel's course? Dr. Israel says he can teach you to read Hebrew in 5 lessons. 5 lessons. 5 lessons. 5 lessons. 5 lessons. There's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. He's going to teach you the block form, the script form, teach you how to write it. He's going to teach you the punctuation. He's going to teach you the vowels, the consonants. He's going to teach you the principles and the rules from an Afro-Semitic perspective, because we must have one language. one voice. And that Afro-Semitic language, that Hebrew language, Hebrew, it means a stranger, which is what you have been in the land. We must be able to speak with that voice. Dr. David Israel. I'm going to post it. Everything that I said starts and ends with us being able to be unified by one voice and be taught that one voice. We cannot still speak the colonizer's tongue and not consider ourselves liberated from the colonizer. We must regain the capacity to speak to each other, and we must change our thinking from the colonizer's Western mind. And the only way to do it is not to think from left to right, but to think from right to left. You should know what I mean by that. God bless you. This is Del K. Brereton, and this is the Real Spiel Shiloh Institute. Stand up. Let me read some of the comments, and after I read the comments, I'll log off. People who would rather someone read the Bible to them instead of reading it for themselves. Yes. And that's what happens at the beginning. At the beginning, yes, I'm going to read the Bible to my child. But once you become a man, once you become a woman, you should be reading it with me. Revelation 6. Yes, Dr. David Israel, thank you very much. The four horsemen. Praise God. Okay. Okay, grand rising to you too. Yes, the righteousness of Yahweh will not let us go on forever. He will step in. When he does, it's going to be humble the whole world. We're very close. Yes, Yahweh steps in, but Yahweh steps in through you. He does. You come with him. You're his army. Okay, God bless you. Everybody have a wonderful day. Share this video. Talk to somebody. Let them know that they are part of the movement. Don't be a puppet to the puppeteers.